Delighted to have you join us today for our presentation of Beyond the Binary, Rethinking Innovation with Generative AI. We're going to allow for a few minutes for folks to arrive. So in the meantime, we would like to invite you to utilize the chat feature on our Zoom call so we can get to know you a little bit more. So if you'd like to tell us your job title, where you're located, and also what you're hoping to learn on this webinar. We do plan for it to be highly interactive. We would love to hear what folks are interested in learning more about as we progress with our presentation and our panel. So just a few minutes to arrive and utilize that chat function. Tell us about your title, where you're located, and what you're hoping to learn. So we've got Amy. Hello, Amy, on from Houston, looking to get inspired, interested in ag innovation. And again, continue as you join us to feel free to utilize the chat feature. We want to know a bit about who is on the call today. What is your title? Where are you located? And what are you hoping to learn? How can we make this as valuable as possible an experience for you? So we've got Ryan. Good to see you again, Ryan. Ryan is saying, calling in from Santa Fe, looking for tools. We will definitely help you all out on the tools front. We've got some amazing resources prepared to share. Munia, good to see you, my friend. We've got Patty from Calgary. We've got Polly from North Carolina. And if you have particular AI interests, feel free to kind of specify what those are, and we can take that into consideration as well. We've got Marion on from Connecticut, applying AI in new ways. We've got Jeremy on with quite the background. We've got Tim Parsons here, joining from Cleveland. Yay, Ohio. Yay, Midwest. I'm from the Midwest as well. And here to cheer on Edwin. I love it. So if you are just joining us, folks, we're going to give it just about one more minute to get critical mass on our call. We want to get a sense of who all is here and what your interests are. Amanda, it's good to see you this morning. Technical advisor at JSI, interested in learning and AI application. I think you're going to be really excited to hear the results of our autonomous AI test as well. Mary, it's good to see you. Meg, Stephen, wonderful. Well, we want to make sure that we give time for everyone to arrive. I'm going to give us about 30 more seconds, folks, and then we'll get going with our webinar. Again, if you're just arriving, feel free to utilize the chat to engage with us. Where are you based? What is your title? And what are you interested in learning today? Beautiful. We got Melinda here. Melinda, good to see you. I see we have a lot of design folks on the call, which is also really exciting because we hoped to kind of provocate some designers with our panel today. All right, folks. Well, we are just about at 5 after the hour, so I am going to go ahead and get us started. First, we'd like to chat a bit with you about what we're going to do today, and hopefully this sounds like something you'd like to be a part of. First off, we're going to kick this off with an AI-driven icebreaker. We think we're going to have a little bit of fun with this one, so we'll take you through an interactive exercise. You don't need anything for the exercise except simply to participate in our polling questions. So we'll kick that off in just a moment. I'm also going to share a little bit about Rising Solutions, and then I'm going to introduce our 3 panelists that we have joining us here today. We have Taylor Cruz, we have Edwin, and we have Ricky. all of whom have various levels of expertise in AI. And so we're excited to introduce them and also bring them into our conversation. But first, before we get any deeper into that, I also want to, still on our agenda, talk about the test that we ran. So hopefully, you saw a little bit in our marketing material about the fact that we ran an autonomous AI design sprint. And so Taylor will tell you a bit about that. And then after our presentation of our design sprint, we'll move into our panel conversation. So we've got a lot of different formats happening, a lot of different ways to engage you. And the last thing I'd like to say from a logistics standpoint is please feel free to engage in the chat over the course of the presentation of the webinar. So I will be actively monitoring the chat, as will Eleanor Felton. Eleanor, if you want to give a wave. Eleanor is our marketing and events person. And Eleanor and I will both be watching the chat. So if questions arise over the course of the presentation or various aspects of the panel conversation, I will either try to actively bring those questions in, or I will hold them and try to get them answered during our dedicated Q&A at the end. So that's what we're looking at for the next hour. And with that, Eleanor, let's go ahead and move on to a little bit about Rising Solutions. My name is Michelle Reisinger. I am the CEO and founder of Rising Solutions. We are a small women-owned innovation strategy firm based here in Washington, D.C. And we focus on social innovation. So we will work with any client, could be a corporate or private sector or bilateral or multilateral, as well as lots of nonprofits and governments. But the projects we work on have to have a quantifiable social return. We have to be able to see how the work we're doing together leaves a legacy of impact. So that's what we mean by social innovation. We are also design strategists and professional facilitators as well. So that is a little bit about Rising Solutions. Eleanor, if you want to go ahead and advance through. And folks, we are going to go ahead and kick off with our icebreaker. So we're going to pull up a poll for you, and you simply have to vote in the poll. Do you believe that the image you're seeing in front of you is real or generated by AI? That's all we have to ask you to do. Do you think the image is real or AI generated? So Eleanor, if you're ready, take us to the first one. Audience, do you think this is real or do you think this is AI? Pop your answer into the pop-up icebreaker poll. And when we have critical mass, Eleanor will show us what the answers reveal. Do you think this is a real image or an AI generated image? Let's give it about 10 more seconds, Eleanor. All right, we got 64% voting AI, 36% voting real. Eleanor, what is this image? This is AI generated. Well done to the 64% of you that must have spotted some aspect of the image that piqued your interest. Let's do this again. Eleanor, bring us to the next one. All right, is this real or AI generated? Just wait for that pop up from Eleanor and then pop your answer into our poll. And yeah, let's see if some of us can redeem ourselves. Jeremy Houchins just trapped into chat. What is it? Well, when we have critical mass, let's reveal what this is. Eleanor, when you think we're ready? Oh, goodness, we've got 52% at real, 48% at AI. Eleanor, what is it? This is a real image, and Jeremy, to answer that crazy question, it is a carnivorous ping pong sponge deep sea creature. I challenge each of you to make a reference to that in your work today. Eleanor, let's do another one. Audience, is it real or AI generated? What do we think? Real or AI generated? Eleanor, when you think we're at critical mass? All right, we've got 85% saying this is AI, 15% at real. Eleanor, tell us what it is. This is a real image, folks, of Steve Jobs Theater in Cupertino. So I think we stumped a number of you on that one. Folks, we got one more for you to bring it home. And then I'm also curious if anybody is 3 for 3 or 4 for 4 at this point, if you want to drop your stats in the chat. Is this real or AI generated? When you think we're ready with critical mass, Eleanor? All right, we've got 67% at AI, 33% at real. Eleanor, what is it? And this is AI, a woman named Emma Johnson. Folks, I'm super curious if you want to use the chat. Did anybody get 4 for 4? Oh, bless you, Melinda. Melinda was super honest and said she was 0 for 4. We got Mary at 1 for 4. Anybody 3 out of 4? 1 for 4 for Steven, 2 for 4. Batting at 50% for Tim. Oh, we got Brian at 3 for 4. Any unicorns out there who are just wizards at the difference between these images? Oh, well, if you're a wizard, feel free to reveal yourself to us. With that, folks, thank you for the participation in our icebreaker. And we are going to move on to an intro of our panelists today. So, folks, we put together a wonderful panel for you all with a lot of different folks across sectors and regions. And the first person I'd like to introduce you to is Taylor Cruz. So, folks, Taylor is based in Zambia today. And so I do want to give everyone the heads up. We're hoping Taylor's video lasts throughout the call. But if it doesn't, we're going to be ready for that logistical happenstance. And Taylor is kind of an exciting presenter for us today because Taylor is not only a member of the Rising Solutions team as one of our client-facing consultants, but Taylor is the design lead that actually did our autonomous AI design sprint. So we're going to hear more from Taylor in a minute. But Taylor, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Michelle. And hi, everybody. I'm excited to tell my story. So just a bit of background. From academia, I have a bachelor's in international business and a master's in social innovation and development. I've been in the innovation space for well over a decade now, working in different positions such as project management, user research, service design, UX design, and actually a lot of that has been with Michelle. Most recently, I've been working with Michelle at Rising Solutions, doing some work around innovation strategy, as well as curriculum development for some of her clients. I'm also a consultant with IDE's Global Innovation Lab, so doing some HCD projects in the WASH sector here in Zambia. And then in the bit of free time that I have, I'm slowly merging my passions together, being someone who's vegan, as well as has this passion for sustainability in the tourism sector. So I have a small business called Mobula Hospitality, helping businesses become more eco-friendly and create inclusive experiences for local guests as well as international guests who come to the region.
Amazing. Thank you, Taylor. And thank you again for all the work you did on the autonomous sprint. I'm super excited to have you reveal those results. Next up, we have Edwin. And Edwin, I'd love to ask you to pronounce your last name for us so that I don't mistakenly pronounce it. And Edwin is, it's funny, I feel like a new friend and yet an old friend because we've run in the same circles for many years, but only more recently have we gotten closer and kind of merged our interests. And the particular reason we were excited to have Edwin join today, folks, is that Edwin is the CEO of Launchpath. which is an innovation management platform, actually has a generative AI tool that we're super curious to hear how his clients are responding to the use of that tool in their use of his technology, as well as into their co-creation and brainstorming processes. Edwin, say hello, your last name, of course, and please do tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm Edwin Goutier. I'm the CEO of Launchpath Innovation. We're on a mission to liberate the innovation potential of the global workforce. We have a platform, as Michelle mentioned, that walks people through a lean startup inspired process and uses generative AI at key points in that journey to help people do more with their innovation process. And then beyond work, I'd probably say I use most of my innovation skills in my home life as a father of two preschool age kids, just figuring out what to do with them on weekends. But super excited to talk more about Launchpath and Gen AI today.
I love it. Or your kids as they come up as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Edwin. And finally, folks, our last panelist today is going to be Ricky Marton. So Ricky sits at the interesting intersection for both Rising Solutions and Koru. So Ricky is actually our technology entrepreneurship advisor at Rising Solutions, and he's also the founder at Koru. And I'll let Ricky tell you a little bit more about Koru as well. Ricky has a fascinating background, starting as a graphic designer, then moving more into tech and innovation in the social sector. And then he began pursuing his PhD, which then he ended up pausing to launch and fundraise for Koru. So Ricky's going to bring in a lot of our more research-oriented ethical AI lens to the conversation today. Ricky, say hello to the audience. It's great to have you this morning.
Thanks, Michelle. And yeah, you covered it pretty well. I think my background is pretty diverse and a bit of ebb and flows, but it's one of those things you look back and you realize it all kind of connects together. So like Michelle mentioned, I've been in kind of a variety of different professional capacities, from consulting to a litigation service company to co-founding a drone business or a sustainability clothing marketplace. But around halfway through my career, I decided I want to have a little bit more impact. Decided to go back to school, got a master's in technology for global development at CU Boulder. And that's when I met Michelle Taylor. We started working on the innovation space with impact in the international development sector. So I was really deeply entrenched in the concept of creating ecosystems, collaboration, and also while doing that, researching ethical emerging technologies, how to use technology ethically, but also how to maximize impact and ensure that everyone, all stakeholders are included in that. So started to get a little bit more curious, put on the nerd cap a little bit further, decided to pursue a PhD in innovation and global development, really analyzing that a little bit deeper, how to foster collaboration, how to create this ecosystem of open innovation, using these technologies once again, which led to my founding of Koru, which is now my main time frame taker right here. So we are a partnership platform that uses AI and other technologies to help corporations find impactful and strategic partners to push forward with their social impact or environmental goals. So Michelle, it's really great to be here. I'm looking forward to the rest of the panel here today. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, panelists. And folks, what we're going to do next is talk a little bit about why we're here today. So I assume, and I actually happen to know that many of you on this call would identify as innovation strategists. You identify as design thinkers, as behavioral designers, as qualitative researchers. And we've got a lot of folks who are in the social sector, so are interested in that ethical AI angle. And like most of you, we at Rising Solutions have been reading the headlines for the last year that generative AI is coming for your jobs, that we're all going to be out of work, and that it's going to be able to replace us. It's going to be able to do our jobs better than we can even do them ourselves. And so we've been watching those headlines over the course of the last year. And like most true innovation strategists, we're sort of like, prove it. we want to actually know if that's real or not. So like most innovation strategists, we were keen to test out that theory, to test out that assumption. And the catalyst for that test was an email we got in late November, early December of this past year from the Board of Innovation, who sent out materials saying that theoretically, you could run a fully autonomous design sprint at this point with the AI tools that exist in the market. And so for us, that was kind of like game, set, match. Okay, we're willing to take on that challenge. We would like to know if this actually can be done. And so we asked Taylor Cruz, who is the client-facing consultant of ours, if she would be so gracious as to devote some of her time to running this test for us. And all we asked of her was, one, that it was a real design sprint. We asked her to come up with a real how might we question. Two, we asked it to not be a how might we question that may actually be a social sector problem. We wanted to kind of remove the constraints of the realm we normally problem solve in and do something radically different. So we bounced around ideas around redesigning shelves at Costco and redesigning transportation systems, things that we are not often engaged to design around. And that way we wouldn't have preconceptions about what is and isn't feasible. So we let Taylor choose that how might we statement, her design challenge, and we asked her to design, focus on something that would not likely be replicated by a client, so we wouldn't be wearing our client hats in the conversation. And then the last thing that we asked of her was, at every single step of the design process, use AI as much as you possibly can. Remove yourself from the process as much as possible and let AI take the lead in so much as you can. And the final thing I'll mention is we also asked her to do it without having to pay for tools. So we did find a number of tools that we could have used throughout our design process that we could have paid for that potentially could have had a more optimal or maximized output. But we asked her to only stick with free tools or to only stick with tools that Rising Solutions was already paying for. So that's a little bit about the constraints of the design sprint. Taylor is going to now give you a presentation on her design sprint. And just for your reference, we're trying to make sure that this stays high level. So we're going to give you really an overview of it. We're not going to go too deep into the how. That kind of feels like a workshop for a later date. But this is more around the what and the why. And then we have a variety of different resources for you that we'll give you at the end to help you replicate your own autonomous design sprint or to bring in the AI tools that we also tested. So Taylor, over to you for the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Thanks, Michelle. So yeah, given those guidelines that she shared with me, I took it from myself as a designer. Okay, let me put it against the framework that I use the most. So for those of you out there who've done design thinking, I chose the double design model that goes through 4 steps: discover, define, develop, and deliver. And then I put it up against Board of Innovation's recently released Stingray model. So just a bit about what that model covers. I know it's a bit small, but you can research it, you can Google it. But essentially it's showing here in this graphic that where there's the dark blue, that's where you find more human involvement, more human-led activities. And then the light blue is where they foresee AI leading the process. And so I'll tell you how that turned out. But that's just for a comparison so you can see the framework I was going against. Next. So to start off, I'll also mention that Eleanor had put together a comprehensive list of tools for me that I could use at my disposal. I had a background using ChatGPT before. I've used AI in other plugins such as Canva or Grammarly, but I really wanted to use this as an opportunity for myself to also learn some new tools. But again, a lot of the tools out there that I think are promising do have a fee associated, or there's a lot where you need to have maybe 25 people on your team. So we can go into some of those questions later, but for your reference, these are tools that I found that I could adapt quickly. Again, given that the challenge was to do it in 8 hours. So to start, I also wanted to make sure that the challenge was very lighthearted, something that I could tell if it was right or wrong and catch AI. If it was a challenge that perhaps I didn't have enough knowledge of, I wouldn't know if it was the right solution or not. So I started with Sharpen. That's a prompting tool, which I put in a specific thing, whether it was a client or what sector I was coming from, and then it would just populate a bunch of responses. For me, though, I wasn't quite impressed with what it was giving me. I actually felt like they were too common, such as improve your commute to work, or it was too specific to the point where I didn't have much interest in dedicating time to solving it, such as design a new feature for a Tesla car. So I thought, let me just go back into ChatGPT and tell it what I want to do. So I gave it some prompts, let them know my level of experience, some of my interest, and my expectations. And I ended up settling on a theme. It gave me a whole list of them, but it was around communication with my family. So for reference, as Michelle mentioned, I'm in Zambia. My family all lives in Ohio, so we're 6 hours behind. I have a toddler with a short attention span, so we're lucky if we get about 5 minutes of attention with the grandparents. Likewise, I have my mother who has poor vision. My father also has hearing impairments and has Bluetooth hooked up to his iPad. So when we try to talk with grandma, he can't hear, and we have to figure that out. So there's a lot of technical challenges between these two very different generations, with me sitting squarely in the middle. So I thought this would be a fun thing to solve. How can we create better experiences for next, Eleanor? Sorry. How can we create intuitive digital bonding experiences for toddlers and grandparents? So my objective in this was to design something that was user-friendly, that facilitates meaningful interactions. I felt too that this was also something that other people could relate with, especially now post-COVID, and we're all very familiar now with different video conferencing platforms. So I thought this could be something to see how specific we could get, but also could it be scalable? Next. And so going into any design sprint, traditionally using human-centered design, you embed yourself directly with the human experience. So again, removing myself, focusing on my son as well as my grandparents, I initially would have gone straight to interviewing them, asking them questions, observing my son, seeing maybe which buttons he pushes, or what YouTube videos he's scrolling on. But instead, for this design sprint, we really wanted to limit that, and we led with AI to help us with the prompts. Next. So these are some of the tools here that I used, and you'll see it through each of the phases. I started with developing an interview guide using a software called Ask Humans. But I realized that I still needed to have substantial oversight over the type of questions generated. The questions were still a bit general and didn't go as deep as I'd like them to be. Overall, the quality was okay, but I will say this to this audience, that if we are designers being paid by a client, I don't think that this would have worked. I don't think it went deep enough. So it's something that could help you and maybe give you a few ideas, but there still needs to be that part of contextualization to make sure you're getting at the objective of what you're trying to find. I also realized too that for doing this research, that with the follow-up questions that I asked, all it gave you was, can you tell me more? Is there anything else to add? So maybe if we were using another platform that does the synthetic research and has synthetic personas and users, perhaps it would have intuitively picked up on those conversations. But in this instance, I felt that these tools that populate the questions for you still needed to have that level of depth. From there, I started also looking at the desk research. Oh, sorry. And just quickly, with the desk research, I used Perplexity, and that was a great tool just to help synthesize the research really quickly. And it also generated additional, basically rabbit holes for me to go down. So with this tool, as well, I will say it was great to, again, give me kind of the initial things that I'm looking for. But in the end, you still need to have some level of oversight, because they were giving you just blankets of information where you needed to vet, okay, yes, it has the keywords, but it's not really touching that subject. So within the discover phase, I couldn't rely on AI alone, and I wouldn't say that it was AI led. Next. So going into define, this is really where we're coming and paring down our information that we received. So in this phase, I ended up trying to find something where I could capture all my information. Some of the tools that Board of Innovation has, they have a AI toolkit. It doesn't save the information. So what I found myself doing is using these other virtual white spaces like Miro to capture all my information. So once I had all of my findings, I could run it through ChatGPT, many different ways to analyze it through different frameworks. For a lot of us maybe who stop at the research phase and don't go on to prototyping, I also found some of the tools for storytelling quite enticing, especially in Canva, if you need to then take some of that data and turn it into a visualization. So again, in this phase, I feel like AI, again, was more of an assistant. It really wasn't leading the process. It was just helping me do it quicker. Next. Going into the ideate stage. So I actually really like AI in this phase, but with a heat of caution. So if we're ever doing ideation as a team or co-creation, you have everyone excited to share their ideas and write it on a Post-it note, but usually you get 1 or 2 word answers, or it's very vague and you don't know what it means. So with using AI, and I use ChatGPT again here too, it gave me full explanations. So it gave me more than just the 3 to 4 word Post-it notes. So it did, again, it helped speed up that process. It was also good at helping me refine the ideas based on some constraints. I would feed it a prompt and say, okay, now give me ideas around this subject, but make it be used for a billionaire. So now they're trying to design a solution for Mark Zuckerberg, or design it with a partner. So it was really quick at helping me come up with other creative ways on the spot. Now, the other thing that I liked about it is that it also helped me eliminate the ideas based off of the prompts I would feed it. So maybe I came to 10 really great ideas. Okay, so what are the risks with these ideas? So I could quickly evaluate, okay, this is going to be an issue, especially in my objective with the digital technology and toddlers. I could see some things around data security. So that was really helpful. But the last thing that I would say, again, this heat of caution, is that if you've done these virtual or these co-creation sessions, that's usually what everybody loves most. Everyone is happy to be a part of the brainstorming. So we have to be cognizant that if we're using AI to replace it, it might take away the fun of the process and diminish the creativity. Next. So going into the prototyping stage. So aside from AI art like Midjourney or DALL-E, or some of the other things that help develop code, I still found that in this stage, humans still need to play a very significant role in the prototyping phase. I feel like humans still need to verify these images. They need to check to make sure it's coming out correctly. I found that in the prompt that I would give Midjourney, and I ran it through DALL-E as well, I asked it to create an image of a grandparent talking with a child using an animal filter. And it showed a child sitting on a very elderly person's lap holding the iPad together. And no matter how many times I turned it around, it wasn't getting it quite right. So maybe eventually it would have gotten there, but when using it to save time, I just wonder how quickly it is at this phase for that specific type of prototype. And then we get into all those other considerations which I think we might talk about later about AI image, being racist and all these other things. So you really have to have that human eye to make sure that whatever is putting out is actually ethical. So lastly, I would say for my overall feedback with everything, AI was definitely more of a thought partner for me. And an assistant rather than a design lead. So looking back at that Stingray model where you had two very significant portions being led by AI, in my instance, I didn't feel that AI actually led that. I felt like Chat GPT was basically, for more or less, my second brain and helping me think through everything a bit faster, which is not a bad thing. And actually, when you're doing these things individually, or maybe you're the single consultant or the single designer on a team, like it's actually quite useful. I also would say that using Grammarly as a plugin is also an alternative for using ChatGPT. So as I'm going into these other platforms, it's already synced into my desktop, and so it's helping me refine in the minute. So finding things that you can integrate already, or something like an all-in-one tool like Launchpath, I think is a much more convenient option than having your AI tool on the side and having to go back and forth. So I think there's a long way to go with it, but for now, I think it's just a helpful tool. I would also say that there's a steep learning curve for AI. Again, I was challenged with only 8 hours, but I think given longer, we could have probably done a lot more. And so just for teams maybe who want to explore this, or maybe you're assembling a design team, have someone dedicated on the team specifically to do the AI component. Again, that way it saves time and you have someone who can double check maybe the newest things that are coming out. And then lastly, I would say that our jobs are safe. AI can't replace human experience or emotions at this point. Some of the findings when I was doing that ideation, as well as coming down to what idea I wanted to select, I found that my creativity actually superseded what I was getting from AI, because I was able to pair my past experience, which AI couldn't read my mind. They couldn't see what was playing on in the background on the TV that my kid was watching, which those two connections inspired me to some new idea. So I think, humans continue to give ourselves credit. AI may be fast, but we're still smart. And that is it.
What a great note to end the presentation on, Taylor. Thank you. And folks, I hope you are bubbling with questions and an interest in what Taylor has shared with us. You can also tell that Taylor has set up some provocations for our panelists to dive into. So with that, we're going to move into our panel conversation. And we are going to use the panel to unpack some of what Taylor has shared. And then during the Q&A, we're going to invite you all to participate even further in that as well. So I am watching the chat. If you have questions now after Taylor's presentation or as the panel continues, please do feel free to pop them in, and I can try to work them into the panel or into the Q&A session as well. So with that, I want to unpack some of this even more. And Edwin, I want to go to you first. So Edwin, at Launchpath, you all have a generative AI brainstorming tool that your clients can use to assist them in a design process. What did you think of Taylor's presentation? Were you surprised by it? Are your clients also saying they're loving AI during ideation, but nobody's using yet during design and prototyping? Essentially, kind of gut check what Taylor's tasks taught us. What are your clients seeing at Launchpath, and what are you all seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that what we've experienced in the last 18 months totally aligns. Like I'm ready to get AI is fast, but we're still smart tattooed on my forehead if I need to.
I love it.
It's such a great encapsulation of what we're seeing. And I'll just say that we kind of view artificial intelligence as almost like a really smart intern. Like imagine you have an intern that knows everything, but they have no work experience. And they just lack the context, the wisdom, the intuition, the gut instincts that many of us might have from being in the workforce or being in our roles for a long period of time. And so In that way, we work with our clients to make sure that AI is being responsibly used and supportive, mainly in three ways. One is in the background when people are doing their brainstorms. There's a lot that we do to massage that prompt to ensure that we're mitigating bias, that we're keeping the solutions that come up really user-centered. The second is we know that when you provide that additional context to the AI, it does better. And if you want to see like how creative AI is, go put the same prompt in ChatGPT and Bard and others, and you will get the exact same solutions from all three, almost word for word. So the fact that that can happen means that if you're not providing very specific context that you are able to surface through the research process, you're not going to get to anything that the average person probably wouldn't just guess on, their first post-it note in the brainstorm. And then third, but probably most important, particularly because we work with nonprofits and social impact organizations, we want to make sure that the role of AI is as a co-pilot in the design process, because we truly believe the designer's role is not to go through the design process and, say that they've done the research, they've come up with ideas. It's to be the decider. And so we want to make sure that there is a human being that is making decisions about whether or not a social impact program should be brought to fruition or not.
Oh, Edwin, thank you. And I'm going to turn to Ricky to kind of build on Edwin's answer. So, Ricky, first off, react to the findings of Taylor's tests for us generally, but then also, are you, as an ethical AI researcher, surprised, not surprised that the human element can't be removed, particularly for where we are on the AI journey right now?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. And really interesting. When I first heard this case study, I was like, it makes complete sense. And Taylor, I think you said one really important thing that I want to kind of stress is that AI at this point in time is not a leader, but it's something to help do things quicker. And so there's been countless examples of AI kind of blind faith in technology at large that has actually led to a lot of, unintended consequences or negative repercussions. One that I use on a regular basis is there was a repatriation program run by the UN, the United Nations, on the Afghan-Pakistan border, where a blind trust in a new iris scanning technology actually misidentified countless refugees, unfairly denying them the humanitarian aid that they deserved. And that's as if, going to the U.S. consulate, if you're, U.S. citizen and saying, like, scanning your thing, saying, I'm an American, they say, nope, sorry, you can't. This little robot basically is disallowing you to do this. And I think what that really proves is the aspect that, like Taylor mentioned, we are all humans. We're all extremely different. We have the ability to hear things, to connect things in ways that AI and technology really cannot at this point in time. And I think that having the results that Taylor shared was, not necessarily surprising, but more so it makes sense. And my worry, one of the things about, AI ethics is we're always the people that come in and say, okay, are we checking with this? Or are we, like talking to these individuals? And oftentimes you find the conversation is it's not a revenue generator to look at ethics. It makes things move slower, which, makes the projects that turn out quicker. And in this day and age, it's quicker, faster, more. And I think that concept of AI not being able to replace human experiences and emotions is something that you have to really tie together. Because what makes a great project within the social sector, when you look at all the available resources, everyone that's involved, all the individuals that have this culmination of experiences that make us human, that's what makes a really incredible project. And if you're taking a blanket technology that has oftentimes been developed by individuals in air-conditioned offices and high-rise suites in big cities, you can't even imagine them to communicate effectively together. So all in all, I do want to throw a little bit of a curveball into this, make it a little interesting. I do think we are on the brink of something new and different. None of us can deny the fact that OpenAI has not changed every one of our lives and all these other technologies that Taylor said. And the question that I'm really excited about is what is the next iterations of it? And so I'll save my soapbox on artificial general intelligence and super intelligence, all these different things. But I think what's really important from my lens, from the AI ethical perspective, as well as leading an AI technology company, is that we need to ensure that we're really thinking of all the stakeholders. We're involving all the voices in this, where we're talking to the right people, and we're thinking about not only what are the effects of that technology at large, but also asking the question, is a technology even the right solution? Oftentimes, the best algorithm is no algorithm at all. And we need to allow ourselves to design different processes, different steps in iteration, different, social funnels, things like that with this in mind. And I think if we can all do that, if we could spread that word and say, this isn't about just creating a product and getting to a solution as fast as possible. Because as Taylor mentioned, that Stingray model, it would be, how can we quicken that? How can we increase that funnel speed or decrease the funnel speed? But more so, how can we do this correctly, ensuring that we are using human in the loop to supplement and optimize the work rather than replace the work, and overall use it to accelerate and do things quicker and more effective, but still keep in mind that we are the humans, that we are the ones in charge in creating these technologies and these solutions. Pulling that all together is where we're going to create the optimal results, but also have the most benefit for humanity at large. So really exciting. I can, obviously go deeper in this direction, but hopefully that paints the picture a little bit. Thanks, Michelle.
Well, Ricky, I'd say you have enough content there for our next webinar, to be honest with you.
Small
But
plug for the future here. Thanks.
Exactly. So I do want to pull on a few of the threads, and also just honor the fact that we have a lot of designers and innovation strategists on the call who I think are eager to learn from our test and to start testing more with AI tools. And so kind of playing on your theme of what happens in the future, Ricky, Taylor, maybe back to you first. If you could do this differently in the future, you've got one test under your belt, you've done kind of like a really quick and dirty, like all my designers and innovation people on the call, it was a rapid prototype. We were just like, go rapid prototype this autonomous design sprint. But if you could do this again in the future, Taylor, and speaking to the strategists and designers on the call, what would you do differently? If I came back to you tomorrow and was like, hey, we're going to do this for a client now, what would you do differently? What would you pull out? Where would you be like, absolutely no AI, I don't trust it yet? What advice do you have for the designers on the call?
First, I would ask for more time. 8 hours was very quick. But to the designers on the field, we always say design is not a linear process. It is, something you go back, you jump around between the different phases. So we did do one phase, or we did one pass at it. But now when it comes time to test, I want to know how AI would help support that testing phase, because especially as we see AI now, creating fake ads, doing things on Facebook, especially for what my challenge was. I'm just curious if whatever solution that came out, would the user or the client be, gullible enough to say, sure, that's perfect, knowing that there's maybe some other ethical things we need to consider. So for this past sprint, we went, from designer to AI. So then I would like to see AI to user, to the client, to see how that shapes the outcome. Because again, within design, once we get that feedback, usually there's another round of iteration. So I'd be curious just to complete that whole cycle to see how that component with someone who doesn't necessarily understand and can discern AI as designers could.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor. And in the same vein, I'm going to throw this one to Edwin. Edwin, what are your clients at Launchpath asking for? What don't they have yet that they're like, oh, can it do this? Oh, can it do that? What are they kind of craving from you all? What are you hearing?
I think what they're asking for is largely not necessarily related to the innovation process, but how can generative AI help with things like securing the funding for the concept, or helping with evaluation of a pilot program. And so we're actually like kind of picking up our aperture and zooming out to figure out how we can use generative AI tools. We now have a new feature that kind of mines federal grants and other grant sources to make those matches between what you're working on in Launchpath and funding sources. Beyond that, I would say that there isn't a huge demand for more features that help with ideation or discovery. I think people are very excited about the tools that they have access to right now and are still at the early stages of learning how to exploit those tools to maximize efficiency and efficacy. Beyond that, we're just trying to figure out like where are the other roadblocks for innovators within large organizations, and how can we solve those with generative AI tools.
Awesome. Thanks, Edwin. And Ricky, to you, as we talk about AI in the future, and we think about kind of the trajectory from artificial general intelligence to artificial super intelligence, realistically, when are we talking about that AI will be more intelligent than a human? And when will that AI possibly have the ability to understand human emotions and really kind of take over from the aspects that Taylor's saying it can't do right now? What does that time frame look like?
So it's a great question, Michelle, and I don't have the strict answer. I think everyone in the AI space has their predictions or they're betting on this horse versus that. But I will say there was a recent study that came out a bit ago that was saying that everybody who has these grand predictions of when we're going to hit these certain milestones, it's actually been expedited and brought quicker on, to some saying, AGI is coming in 2027, so within a few years. Others say it's 30 years away, others say it's 50 years away. Others say won't be for another century. But all I can say on that one is that it's coming, and it's coming quicker than everyone is anticipating, because of these new technologies, because of these leaps in not only the AI technology itself, but quantum computing, the powers to actually make these run, the energy efficiencies that goes into ensuring that these technologies can run efficiently and effectively. Those are propelling at a rate that's faster than we've ever seen before in the entire history of innovation, invention, and things like that, which is really exciting. Obviously, there's other side of the coin to think about. So then you start to look at, how do we use these complex systems that are extremely intelligent? And we're saying when AGI hits the ground, it's going to be human intelligence times 100 or times 1,000. And let me just make a comparison. People say we're about 87 times smarter than an ant. So us to an ant, we're going to have intelligent computer systems that are way beyond that ratio. And so just imagine what we have to do to control those and ensure that it's for our intended benefit. And so putting the emotions, the intelligence, the more EQ related capabilities in these is going to be really imperative to design it from the start. And when that does come, Michelle, I think it's a really interesting question. It's like, are they going to be able to think like us? Are they going to change the way we think? We're already seeing people that are walking around with a phone basically glued to their hand. And when you ask them a question, they say, let's Google it, or let's, search it from here and there. And so at what angle do we actually form this singularity where we're one with the machines? And so is it a question of, is it going to be able to think like a machine and have these emotions, but more so, are our emotions going to be taken away? And are we going to be forced into this next stage of evolution of human development? And so those are probably more questions than answers, but really something interesting to think about. And all in all, from a big picture perspective, we are in a really critical junction with today's time, where these technologies are increasing at this totally unprecedented speed. And it's really exciting to see where they're going to go, but also ensure that we are thinking of these tests like Taylor has done in this early stage, to ensure that we're putting the right variables in the right places.
Mm. Wow, Ricky, lots to kind of buckle up with there. And folks, we're going to leave you with a lot of resources to hopefully kickstart your journey with AI design and innovation. But before we do that, I'm going to do a quick lightning round question to the panelists, and then we're going to have Q&A. So folks, as we're doing this lightning round question, please feel free to drop your questions for the panelists in the chats. I will look for them there, and then we'll make sure you get your resources before we close out. But lightning round question for everyone. Same question. Taylor, can AI replace a human innovator? Yes or no?
No.
Edwin, can AI replace a human innovator?
No.
No. And Ricky, can AI replace a human innovator?
Today, no. Perhaps a couple of years from now, I'm going to say yes.
Okay. So with that, folks, we hope we will assist you in starting your AI journey, since I think a lot of you have also read that the anecdotal advice is AI isn't going to necessarily replace our jobs, but it is going to replace the job of someone who is not using AI. So we're going to move into our Q&A now. So audience, if you have questions for our panelists, we invite you to drop those questions into the chat. And then we can also invite you to come off of mute if you'd like to verbally ask a question as well. So I did see some conversation in the chat. We've got Tim who's saying, I'd love to see more in a future conversation about using AI for synthesizing an evaluation after the ideation phase in crowdsource innovation or collective impact. And I'll plus one that, Tim, by saying I do think I can confidently say that the synthesis of the qualitative research that we do at Rising Solutions is now all AI assisted, and it is game changingly faster using the AI for what years ago would have been manual coding. It would have been using systems like Delve or Deduce and using keywords, and now your AI generates your keyword list while also analyzing your data at the same time. And it's just fascinating how much quicker we move. We've got Jeremy who's asking, if AI helps with speed, what is the potential cost to humanity when it comes to depth? So Ricky, I'm going to look at you first on this one, and then Taylor, Edwin, if you want to weigh in. Ricky, the question again is, if AI helps with speed, what is the potential cost to humanity when it comes to depth? And I think we even heard Taylor saying some of this as she was having to triage the results of the AI.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great question. And so there's a few things that come to mind. You have to think about, loss of the deep expertise that goes into it, offering just surface level solutions, human insight, creativity, risks, things like that. And I think depth is a real thing to keep in mind, because we think of it as a way to supplement the speed to make things more efficient and more effective. But at the same time, is it really allowing us to have the deep insights that humans are so incredibly good at? And so I think the risk to humanity, the cost of humanity, is that we are going to be in a world that has a very surface level solutions that don't actually have the deep layers that are needed to create really profound, radical innovations and deeper insights and ways to think about things, if we are extremely reliant on just a surface level of technology. So that's a quick answer. Hopefully, that helps, and curious to hear from others.
Edwin, Taylor, anything to add?
Yeah, I think efficiency and speed as a goal is always a little bit troubling when you're doing social impact design projects. My hope is that we can find more time to spend on places where people are better than the machines. And so we're not using AI to speed through the process and get through it in like a day versus a month, but instead to spend even more of that time leveraging human intuition and allowing AI to be the assistant that, just goes through the things that we might have given to someone who wasn't part of the design process to begin with.
Yeah. Taylor, anything to add?
Yeah, just coming from the perspective of a trainer facilitator with the innovation process, I think, what was the last decade of companies investing in an innovation practice and training their staff to be able to do these processes, only for it to be replaced within AI, within the next couple of years. So thinking about, the human creativity, that element that I was saying, that I think there's so much that humans still have to add, that just because it's faster doesn't mean that it's better. And so I think just from the cost perspective, there's already been so much investment in helping humans be able to do more, that we should not just lose that.
Yeah. And I want to also pull on the ethical thread a little bit more, but I'm going to ask Edwin first. So Edwin, I know your AI is trained on an LLM that is kind of social sector specific, and that's one of the major assets of that technology. And it came up peripherally with Ricky and Taylor's contributions, but what do we do with LLMs when they're trained on data sets that are unequal, that they have racial bias in them, that they have bias against particular groups, and how do we troubleshoot that from coming out into our solutions, especially because social innovation really is dealing with a lot of nuance around the use of its solutions and what makes them successful. So tell us a bit maybe about your LLM, and then Ricky, maybe I'll come to you for thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we don't have a separate LLM. We're using OpenAI, sometimes Claude for different purposes. But through a few techniques like few shot prompting and others, we're able to kind of coach the LLM on what to look for, what a good solution might look like, what is where the guardrails are, what's acceptable. And even with that, it's far from perfect. Just like if you bring a group of people together and you're doing a brainstorm, some people will follow those instructions and you'll get solutions that are within an acceptable range, and some people will still miss the mark. So for me, I haven't found the solution to the fact that all of the LLMs that are out there right now, for the most part, are leveraging historical data that is biased and not necessarily representative of the future that we're trying to create. And it is just a fact that neural networks kind of extrapolate forward from all of the things that it's trained on. And so it is super important that we're part of that ideation process and bringing in those solutions that might not be, just the next logical step forward from everything that has happened in the past.
Yeah. Ricky, any last thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll add to it. I think that's spot on, and also the aspect of bringing in those different stakeholders to actually ensure that this data that's being trained on is, according to everyone involved. And quick example I like to use is there was I won't say which company, but a large tech company released a Twitter bot. This was before OpenAI, and was saying it's going to learn from all the Twitterverse and be able to interact like a human. And within 48 hours, it was actually, the plug was pulled on it because it was saying racial slurs, it was insulting people, it was creating all these negative interactions. And so that's just a clean-cut example of, you need to have the right data in order to train it, and that training is the output of what it'll actually create. And so just ensuring that you're, once again, asking the right questions, taking that ethical lens with it is so incredibly important, because genie's out of the bottle. It's up to us to ensure that it's going the right direction.
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. It's up to us to ensure it's going the right direction. That is the note we are going to end on, folks. So Taylor, if you could, Eleanor, if you could take us back one slide. We just want to briefly show you all a template we created in Miro. This is built off of the design sprint that Taylor ran for us. And we're going to be sharing this resource with you because we've created a blank template so that you can start your own AI design sprint testing. Maybe you do the entire sprint using AI tools, and maybe you just plug tools in initially where you're comfortable. But if nothing else, what we're hearing is that the best thing you can do is to start. So we're going to be sharing this resource with you, along with, if you click us to the last page, Eleanor, folks, if you click on this QR code, it will take you to a page on our website where we have a load of resources available to you. We have about 60 plus AI tools that we have been testing, tinkering with, incorporating, reading about in our work. So you have access to that list, as well as the template that we just showed you and the slides from this PowerPoint. So we thank you very much for joining our call today. I hope you learned something. We were very excited to have you, and we just hope that this is the catalyst for your journey with AI. It's not as intimidating as you may think. As Edwin said, just treat the AI like your intern. And you'll have a wonderful member of your team that's extremely polite and very smart, and I think can be tremendously value add for you. So with that, folks, we will close out today's webinar. We invite you to use the resources. We'll be emailing them as well in case you haven't captured the QR code. And we wish you a wonderful rest of your day or evening. Thank you, panelists.